StrayAllDay.com.
You are now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day, to do the work, confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, give you a huge dose of personal initiative. What is that? That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques all underneath the umbrella of one unified philosophy that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is building a personal brand that lasts. Before we get into this, I remind you all of two things. Specifically, first of all, my daily motivation and Monday motivation messages guaranteed to have you focused, sharp, and on point to start your day or your week. All you got to do is text me to be part of my text community to get that. Once we start sending those messages out again, just text me at 305-384-6894. And again, once we start sending that message out again, you'll be getting it straight to your phone. Secondly, Work on Your Game University. That's a place where we're working with high-level, ambitious people who are serious about taking your game, your brand, your business, your life, your career to its highest possible level with my direct help in the process. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. That link is down below in the description to this video or audio, wherever you're listening to this. That out the way, let's get into the topic here today, which again is building a personal brand that lasts. Now, there are many people who listen to this show who I know are building personal brands. You are actively monetizing your brand, meaning monetizing just means you're making money from it, or you would like to make money from your brand, or you want to build a brand, then make money from it. And you want to maximize your returns from doing exactly this. And you want to make sure that you're investing in it in the right way, building it in the right way. And at the same time, big thing when you're building your personal brand, attracting the right type of people, because even though there are 8 billion people on the planet, not all 8 billion are the ideal people who you want in your world. So this doesn't necessarily, when I say making a personal brand that lasts, doesn't mean that your entire business needs to be based around on who you are as a person, because it may be based around what your products are, your information, training that you're doing, etc. And maybe you want to build the business in such a way that maybe in the future you can pass it off to someone other than yourself, so it's not always driven by you. At the same time, who you are as a person plays a big role in drawing the right people to you. So today we're going to talk about how to build a personal brand that has lasting and staying power. And these principles I'm going to share here today also will apply to you building a personal brand, even if you're, let's say, climbing a corporate ladder, you're working in an academic space, you're working in the governmental space, such as, say, a politician. All these people have personal brands. Joe Biden has a personal brand. Barack Obama, Donald Trump, George Bush, Kamala Harris, they have personal brands. College professors, those of you who have been on a college campus, working on a certain campus for a certain amount of time, you have a personal brand. There's a way that people think about you and talk about you around the campus. The longer you're there, the more that reputation starts to spread. And of course, entrepreneurs, you have this. If you work in corporate, depending on how long you've been at the company, again, based on your track record, you have a reputation. So your personal brand is synonymous with your reputation. What are people thinking about you? So let's talk about it. Point number one, topic once again is building a personal brand that lasts. Number one, establish your principles. Your principles. If you want your brand to last, your brand must be built on rock, not built on sand. So what is the rock upon which you will build? The rock is what your principles are. What are you about? And there's no right or wrong answer to this, but there should be an answer. So actually the wrong answer is if you don't have an answer. So you should think about this. Any of you who has a personal brand or you want to build one of the first questions you need to ask yourself is, what am I about? What am I standing for? What am I standing on? What is acceptable? What is not acceptable? Again, this is just for you. This is your personal, how you feel about things. This is not about what anybody else is going to think. It's about what you think. I did a 4-part series called the 12 Work on Your Game Commandments. In those 12 Work on Your Game Commandments, what I did was lay out for you the principles of what Work on Your Game is about. And I created Work on Your Game, so you can connect those to me. So this is episode 2219 is where that series started. And I did exactly what I'm explaining to you. I told you the principles of Work on Your Game, what we're about, as well as what we're not about. Now, this doesn't mean that there aren't some other principles that are not listed. There are some other things that I believe and that I'll stand on that are not listed, because I could literally do a 300-hour episode if I was going to list everything and explain everything. But I laid the core 12 out in this 4-part series, and actually 13. I miscounted, but I still call it the 12 work on your game commandments, even though it's 13 of them. So I told you what the principles are, what we're about, what we're not about. And the point was to better draw in people who are aligned with my principles and to push away those who are not aligned with my principles. I talked about this in episode 1364. It is called rejection marketing. A lot of people don't know that this is a thing. Rejection marketing is about sharing things intentionally with the purpose of pushing away the wrong people. Whereas attraction marketing is sharing things intentionally with the purpose of drawing people in. But often when you're attracting certain people, you're pushing people away. And when you're rejecting certain people, you're drawing people in. So they kind of work together. But I made the episode on rejection marketing to help people understand that when you put something out there and it causes people to say, I don't like you, or I don't like you anymore, or I'm unfollowing you, or I'm not going to be a fan of yours because you said something or did something that I disagree with, understand that there is intentionality behind that. There's intentionality behind that concept. I've talked about many hot button, let's say, social topics. I've talked about race. I've talked about politics. I've talked about gender stuff. I've talked about, so we could just leave it at those three alone. Just on those three alone, I could easily just make this show all about personal and professional development and never touch on those topics and have people in my audience today who have decided to leave my audience because I said something that they were offended by on one of the topics of government, or let's say politics, race, or anything relating to, let's say, gender or the police or anything like that. I've talked about these subjects because I have some principles upon which I have firm principles that inform my positions on these subjects. And the more that I let people know what those firm positions are, and the more I help people understand, well, this is the principle that I'm basing it on, the more I'm drawing in the people who I want to be drawn in, and the more I'm pushing away the people who I wanted to get rid of anyway. And anybody who is kind of in the middle, well, those people are not the ideal people that I want. I don't want people who are in the middle. I want people who hear what I'm saying. And they say, I appreciate that he said it. I appreciate why he said it. And I appreciate how he said it. That's what I want. Now, I'm not saying you need to do that. I'm not saying you need to come out and talk about your positions on these same topics. I'm saying you need to figure out what you are about and versus what you're not. And you need to let people know. You need to let people know what you are about and what you're not, because that is letting your ideal people know, hey, this is the place for you, and is letting your not ideal people, like the worst people, know this is not the place for you. Get out of here. All right, and you want to do this on purpose. If you didn't hear those episodes, again, you can go back and listen. You can also tell by somebody listening to and consuming the material that I put out, what I'm about, even if you don't know the principles by number. Remember that people stay connected to other people because they believe that you are like them psychologically much more than demographically. So the reason I put those principles out, again, is not that you need to know them by heart. And I don't even always remember all 12 of them. I probably couldn't recite all 12 of them off the top of my head right now as I'm talking to you. But the point is, the reason that I'm putting those out and letting you know where I stand is to help people understand, all right, here's the psychological alignment between me and you, or here's the lack of alignment between me and you. It's not about demographic. All right? So you don't have to be black. You don't have to be male. You don't have to be an athlete. You don't have to be an entrepreneur. You don't have to be an author. You don't have to be any of the things that I am demographically, like the things you can count and measure. But if we are on the same page psychographically, then those are the people who I'm looking for. All right, so these are the things that you should be looking for in your brand, because again, this is your personal brand, which means these people are connected to you as a person. I would suggest that you look to attract people who you would actually want to talk to, because you're going to be connected to these people and you are kind of stuck with them once you bring them in. Moving on to point number 2. We're talking here today about how to build a personal brand that lasts. Number 2, build a personal connection. So this is connected to what we just said in point number 1. Personal connections, folks, are mostly created through story and narrative. Sharing about yourself, about what you're doing, why you're doing it, what you're thinking, and why you're thinking. That's how personal connection happens. Just talking to people. I mean, think about any friends that you have when you first met them, how you and that friend got to know each other. Usually it was through you two having conversations where you shared about where you're from, what you're doing, why you're doing it, what you think, what opinions you have, for what reason, where they came from, what informs your worldview, why you're taking certain actions, why not take those other actions, your opinion on certain subjects. And you two went back and forth and you found that you were aligned on many things. Usually when someone's your friend, you're aligned on a bunch of things. Don't have to be aligned on everything, but you're aligned on a bunch of things. That's how personal connections happen, right? Okay, well, it's the same way you build a personal connection through your brand, is letting people know What are you doing? Why are you doing it? What are you thinking? Why are you thinking it? How'd you come to that conclusion? What's the reason behind it? The more you do that, the more people can feel like they know you. This is what you want when you're building a personal brand. When you're building a personal brand, you want the people who are connected to your brand to feel as if they know you based on the things that you are sharing with them about yourself. Doesn't mean you got to tell them all of your business and all of your life, but you need to tell them enough that they feel like there's a connection between them and you. There are different amounts, different levels of that is necessary based on who you're talking to, why you're talking to them, what you are asking them to do in exchange, i.e., what you're selling, and who you are as a person. How much do you want to share? Again, you don't have to share everything, but you need to share enough that people feel like they know you. And again, that level can be different for different people for different reasons. This is why when you get out there in the field, you will start to learn this. And once you start putting yourself out there, you'll figure out, all right, what are you comfortable sharing versus what you're not. These days, even if your brand is your brand is an entity rather than being a human being. Let's say your brand is just based on this is the name of the company, et cetera, et cetera. People still want to know who the people are or the person is behind that brand. People want to know that these days. That's a really important thing. Now, authenticity is a big thing these days. People want to know who is the human being or the human beings who are behind this thing right here. I want to know who they are, what they're about, where they're from, what they're doing, why they do it. People want to know this. This is why when you go to almost any company's website, they have a page on there that says our team or leadership or about us. And what's on that page? It's showing you who are the people who work here, what are their job titles, and often many companies will tell you a little bit about the person. If they're very formal, does it tell you their background? They went to this school and they worked at this company, this company, this company. This is their role at the company here, and here's what they do. Here's what they're responsible for. Here's their LinkedIn profile or something like that. Now, companies that are more informal, this is usually most often seen in small businesses. You'll have the company's about us page will have each person telling you more personal stuff about them. Well, I have a dog. I got 3 kids. I went to this school. I like eating pizza on the weekends, stuff like that. The whole point is to build a personal connection. That's the reason why they had that page up there. To build a personal connection so you know who they are. Again, literally, the page is literally called About Us or Who We Are. Why are they doing that? Why are they doing that when they're selling you some kind of marketing services? Why does it matter who the people are? Why does that even matter? They're selling marketing services. The marketing service good? Yes. Then why do I need to know who the people are? Because people want to know. All right. People need a reason these days. And people have always needed a reason. Human beings, we like to have a reason why we do things. We don't like to just do things on a logical, objective, dispassionate basis. Even though most of us think that we're logical, dispassionate, and objective, all human beings are not on most things. We need a reason to do something. Just because a thing can offer us some benefit is not enough reason for us to take action on it. We need a stronger emotionally connected reason to do a thing. So when I tell you I have a book that will show you how to show up on your best days and give your best effort on your worst days rather, and give your best effort and have your best performance, even when you thought it was going to be a terrible day, just on that alone. If you didn't know who I was, if I just told you that, would you go get the book? Probably not. What if I told you the book was free? You just got to cover the shipping. Would you get the book? Probably not. Now, when I connected to the story of, hey, I used to play basketball, and basketball players used to ask me, how are you always in the gym more often than everybody else? Because I had all these videos on YouTube and all these people were watching me, and I was building this brand based on being this basketball player who trained all the time. Then I explained to them this whole concept called the third day, which is about everybody shows up on the first day because you're excited. Fewer people show up on the second day, but still a good amount. But by the third day, people stop showing up because they realize that this is real work and it's going to be a real grind. It's not one big party, and there's some real effort that's going to be involved in this. And anyone who's going to be a professional at what they do, they have to do that same thing. And I have been living that concept for a decade at that point, but I had never articulated it. And once I put it into words, I saw the way people responded to it, and I realized that there was a whole framework I could build around it. That's how I ended up doing a TED Talk on the subject. I talk about it a lot in my programs and in my speeches. And then I went and wrote a whole book about it called The Third Day. And it's all about how you show up and give your best effort when you least feel like it. Now that you understand who I am and why I'm the person who needed to write that book, now let me tell you, I'll give you a free copy of it. Just cover the shipping. Just go to thirddaybook.com. Now that I told you the story, is it more intriguing to go get the book? You see how that works? So this is why people want to know who you are. This is why building a personal connection matters. Because see, if I just told you about the book and I didn't tell you who I was or why it matters that I'm the one who wrote the book, you wouldn't be interested in the book. Information alone would not move you to action. But when you know who I am and you know what I'm about, and you see this very show that you're listening to, and you see that I'm putting material out as consistently as I am, and then I tell you I wrote a book about consistency and showing up every day, it matches. You see the congruence between what you see me doing and what I'm talking about? That matters. That moves people to go get it. Now, if I was a person who was just putting the show out every now and then, or I was inconsistent, or I didn't have that background that made it make sense while I was talking about it, then it wouldn't connect and you probably wouldn't go get it. And it could be the exact same book. And it's the exact same thing when it comes to you and whatever you're offering. If you happen to be in this space and entrepreneur like I am, there needs to be a congruence between what you're offering and what you've done. And you must be good at articulating what you've done and its connection to what you're offering. If you fumble the ball in articulating that, then people are not going to move to action on what you're offering because you have fumbled the ball on explaining the why behind it. People need to know why. In the world that we're in today, with social media and our ways of being able to be in everybody's business, and us and people like me, for example, putting a lot of our business out there for public consumption, people want to know why. So you got to tell them, all right, this matters. Okay. So if you can connect your core offerings back to you connect your story, rather your experience back to your core offerings, that is fine. And even if you don't, that's fine as well. But people just want to know that you're a person. All right. They just want to know who you are, what you're about, what you're bringing to the table. You don't have to have some personal story that connects to what your core offering is. Let me say, for example, let's say I sold tractors. Let's say I sold tractors or I sold concrete. I had a concrete business or a tractor business, even though my background is as a professional athlete and playing basketball. All right, what does one have to do with the other? Very little. It has nothing to do with it. But I would still need that page on my website that says who we are, who I am, why I do this. I would still need to tell you a why. Okay, so I used to play sports, and I realized that sports careers are short, and at some point I was going to have to do something else. And I looked around at different industries to try to find an industry in which I could best serve, in which I could apply the things that I learned as an athlete to what I'm doing now. And being that I'm from middle America and come from a small town where a lot of my family members were farmers, that's why I decided to get into the tractor business. All right, so that's the reason why I'm in the business. All right, that's enough. But I had to tell that story. If I don't tell you, then you're like, well, who am I buying this from? You want to know. People want to know. And you see this happen a lot these days with companies when they align themselves with some cause that maybe pisses some of their fans off. And some of their fans are like, okay, I'm not buying this anymore. Like Bud Light made the very stupid decision that they needed to, after years, Bud Light. Bud Light is a beer that basically sells to the everyday American man, guy who goes to work every day, comes home at 5, 6 o'clock, takes a shower, wants to eat dinner, and have a beer while he watches TV. That's their customer. What Bud Light decided to do, very stupidly, was to rebrand themselves to be more inclusive. And they got this guy named Dylan Mulvaney, who is a man, but who lives his life as a woman. So I guess he considers himself transgender, even though there's no such thing as being transgender. You cannot trans your gender. He's not a woman, he's a man. And they went and got this guy for an ad campaign, which was one of the dumbest fumbles of the ball ever seen in the history of marketing. So they go get a transgender man to represent the Bud Light brand because Bud Light needed, quote unquote, needed to be more inclusive. What the hell? What transgender person was asking Bud Light, hey, can you do something for us? Nobody. Nobody was asking for that. Women were not asking for Bud Light to do anything. Nobody was asking for Bud Light to do anything except keep selling Bud Light to the all-American white man who have been buying Bud Light for decades. And these idiots went and tried to make themselves more inclusive, and they cost themselves a ton of customers in the process. This was just stupid. And the reason they did it is because Bud Light had been following diversity, equity, and inclusion practices, and they hired some woman out of some liberal university for their marketing campaign, and she's the one who came up with the dumbass idea. So it's not even Bud Light. It is Bud Light's fault, but they're not the ones who came up with the idea. Who came up with the idea was this dumb marketing woman out of some liberal university who said we got to be more inclusive because she learned that bullshit in college, and then she got into the professional world and started teaching it, and then she got Bud Light to buy onto it, which was a very, very, very bad idea, and a very costly one at that. And she got fired, and probably a bunch of other people at Bud Light lost their jobs behind that idiocy. You're going to make sure you don't make that mistake. Okay? So people want to know who's behind what you're doing, who they are, how they are. And being that we're talking about personal branding, it should be pretty simple for you to apply this by simply sharing about yourself. So it's not like you're making up a story about somebody else. You're telling your own story. Who are you, your life, your thoughts, your actions, the reasons behind what you do. All right? This type of personal connection is a big deal these days because people like to connect with humans these days, not just companies. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is building your personal brand at last. Number 3, evolve and grow. All right, your personal brand has to grow. All right, you should not be the same person 10 years from now that you are today. these days when I'm doing, this happens often when I'm either doing a live stream on, and I'll have people come up on, as of this recording, when I do my live streams, I'm usually going live on TikTok. And also, and by the way, on TikTok, my name is Work on Your Game. Just look up Work on Your Game on TikTok. And also on Instagram, which is at Dre Baldwin. Often when I'm doing those live streams, I'll have someone come in the comments and say, yo, I used to watch the basketball drills back in the day when I was, somebody said the other day, so I used to watch the drills when I was in middle school. And I said, how old are you now? He said, I'm 21. So people often say, they say, well, I appreciate seeing your evolution, because they see me wearing a suit and they see me talking about stuff that's not basketball related. And maybe they had lost touch with what I was doing because I stopped talking about basketball, and I'm older than them. So when I got out of the game, they were still in the game. But then I resurfaced to them and they see that this evolution of me, and they're like, yo, I appreciate that. And I have people still in my audience today who have come along with me in this process, and they see the evolution. I get the same type of comments. The whole point is, and I get this on X as well, Twitter, sometimes people disagreeing with me. Like, yo, I used to watch your YouTube videos, but I don't like that you said that, or you have this opinion. I get that as well. But either way, people can see the evolution. They see it's not the same person talking about the same things. So you need to evolve and grow as you build your personal brand. Give you an example of 50 Cent, the rapper. 50 was asked once in an interview what got him into doing things like television, and as he does now. He mostly does television and network shows and movies and things like that. I do not watch TV. I haven't seen any of 50 Cent's TV shows or documentaries or movies, whatever he's doing. I know he's doing it, but I haven't watched any of it because I don't watch TV. But I heard 50 say that he understood that when his first album came out, which was about 20 years ago, a little bit more than 20 years ago, he had a core audience of people, because his hit record was called In the Club. Everybody remembers the song In the Club, right? And his core audience were people who would literally be in the club, right? Listening to music, partying, going to college parties. I was in college when 50's album came out. His first album is probably my favorite rap album of all time, Get Rich or Die Trying. And I was in the club, going to parties, partying, drinking, doing all the stuff that college kids do. And his core audience was those people. And he said, well, I realized 20 years from now, all right, 20 years from then, those same people who were my core fans aren't in the club anymore. All right, now they're grown up, they're married, they have kids, they're going to work every day. All right, they're not going to the club on Friday and Saturday night. Instead, they're sitting at home and they're firing up Netflix and Hulu and watching TV. So guess what? I evolved so that my message of 50 Cent can still get to that same core audience, but in a different way, because they're not doing the same things now that they were doing then. And guess what? Neither am I. It's the same thing for you. Using myself as an example, again, 10, 15 years ago, I was on a basketball court every day talking about basketball and doing basketball things, trying to dunk on people. These days, I'm talking more about business. I'm talking about mindset. I've evolved into a more professional presentation, let's just say, for lack of a better term. In sports, you can be a professional too, but you get what I'm saying colloquially. That's how I've evolved over time. So there's an evolution with me. There's an evolution with, let's say, someone like 50 Cent. There should be an evolution with you as well as you build your personal brand. Or if you've had a personal brand for some time, you should be able to look back at where you were 5, 10 years ago and see where you are today. There should be a clear evolution that someone from the outside looking in can see. You shouldn't even have to explain your evolution. Someone should be able to, as I just explained to you, come onto your live stream, hear you talking for 30 seconds and say, damn, that's such and such. Oh, wow, I can see that you changed. I can see that you've evolved. I can see that there's some growth between where you were last time I saw you and where you are now. Someone sees you 5 years apart, they should tell there's been some growth since 5 years ago. If they can't tell, you need to examine that and fix it ASAP. Okay? So as I talked about, 50 Cent evolved. You should be evolving. This is exactly what you should think about evolving with your audience. So when I first came out, as I said, a bunch of basketball players wanted to play in the NBA. Now a lot of those players don't play basketball anymore. They moved on to other things, professional things. There are people in this audience who are listening to me today who found me through basketball, but you're not playing basketball anymore. You're on to a professional career. Maybe you built a business. Maybe you're looking to build a professional career or a business. And now you see what I'm talking about. And you're like, okay, well, Dre helped me when I was looking to be a basketball player, but now I'm looking to be this thing, and it looks like maybe Dre can help me with this. So the evolution, at least a portion of your audience should grow and come along with you. As I just gave you the example of 50 Cent. I listen to music. I do not watch TV. So even though 50 Cent has evolved into watching TV, I haven't really gone with him because I don't watch TV. So I'm not a consumer of the things that he puts out now, but I'm still a fan of his because I found him through the music back in the day. So I'm one of the people who kind of dropped off when he evolved into television. But a bunch of people who were going to the club in 2003 are watching Netflix in 2024. They are still his fans. So he kept a strong portion of his core audience with him, even as he evolved into different things. Now, again, there are people in my audience who don't like the fact that I've mentioned some things socially that maybe they disagree with, so they dropped off, or they're still playing basketball, so they dropped off. But there are a bunch of you still in this audience who you evolved into other things outside of sports. You are aligned with me psychographically on certain subjects, and you're still here. So not all of your audience is going to grow with you. And let's be real, not all humans grow. All right, there are some people who were in the club in 2003 who are still in the club in 2024. All right, so 50 Cent didn't keep everybody. All right, so understand this. Understand that some people are not going to come with you, but a portion of your audience will come with you as long as you continue to evolve and grow. And those are the people you want anyway. You want the people who are evolving and growing, not the people who are staying in the same spot, unless you happen to be selling the same thing. So if you're a cigarette company, I guess you want people who are still smoking cigarettes 20 years later. Otherwise, you'd be out of business because you don't have anyone to sell to. So things that I talk about these days, I took them from sports, mindset, strategy, systems, accountability. I'm just applying them in a different way. So this evolution coincides with the evolution of my audience. Because there are many of you who didn't know me when I was talking about basketball because you would not have cared about basketball because you don't play. And you didn't play. But because of what I'm talking about now, you are here. Same thing with 50. There are people who didn't listen to rap music or go to the clubs ever, but they do watch TV. And now that he's doing TV, they're like, oh, this 50 Cent guy, he's pretty good with this TV stuff. So you just have to understand that evolution happens. You're going to pick up new people, you're going to drop old people, and some people are going to stay around. That's it. Let's recap today's class, which is building a personal brand that lasts. Again, many people want to build personal brands. A personal brand, I believe, is essential to your professional growth, whether you're working in the corporate world, academic space, politics, or as an entrepreneur. Let's talk about it. Number one, establish your principles. What are you about? What are your foundational points? What are you standing on? What do you stand for? What do you not stand for? This needs to be clear, and you need to know what it is. This helps inform your decisions. Number two, build a personal connection. People want to know who you are, what you do, why you do it, where you come from, what is the background and the foundation of everything that it is that you're doing. If you don't know, they don't know. And if they don't know, they won't be deeply connected with you. Doesn't mean they won't buy from you, but they won't stick around if they don't have a connection to you as a person or the people behind the thing that you do. People want to know that. That's why companies tell you who we are, our leadership, about us. They have that for a reason. Number three, evolve and grow. 50 Cent, for example, again, he came from being in the club to now people are not in the club, they're watching TV. So now he moved on to TV. Me, I came from on the basketball court to now taking things that I took from basketball, mindset, strategy, systems, accountability, and applying that in a business way. And people who evolved in the same way are still here. So as you evolve over time, people who are evolving and growing along with you will stay with you, and you'll pick up new people at the same time and drop some people who need to be dropped. This all happens in evolution of life, period, especially when you're building a personal brand. With that said, make sure you text to get in my community. Also, workonyourgameuniversity.com. You're a person who is evolving, you're growing, you want to move forward, not only from the past to the present, but also from the present to the future. You want to keep moving forward. You'll like some direct help with doing that and a process for doing it, and a coach who will help you along the way, and myself. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. Work on your game. Dre all